Welcome to the massive open online course, dear viewers. Previous session we were discussing about the execution of budget. We started with small outline of formulation of budget, the stages during the enactment of the budget. Then we had a detailed discussion on execution of budget. In this execution of budget, we discussed with what is the meaning of the execution of budget. Also, we discussed various aspects which is involved while executing the budgets. What are all the basic functions which is required while implementation of the budget. The role of Central Board of Direct Taxes as well as indirect taxes also we had discussed. I would like to continue with the proper custody of funds, under which we will be discussing on direct control by Parliament or the legislature. Point number 2 is control by parliamentary or legislature committees. First is estimate committee, then public accounts committee, then committee on public undertakings. Then we will be discussing about consolidated fund, contingency fund and the role of finance ministry. With that I would like to conclude. So now let us move on to what is proper custody of the collection of funds. Parliament exercises control over public expenditure through the following institutions. First institution is this Parliament has direct control. If it is a central government, Parliament is there. For state government, we have legislature. Legislative assembly is there. Second is control by parliamentary or legislature committees. Under this, we have 3 committees. First one is the estimate committee. Second, public accounts committee. Third is the committee on public undertakings. See, what is the estimate committee? This committee which comprises of 30 members. These members, they will be selected every year from the Lok Sabha. Earlier this committee was created which was carried out the task of examining proposed estimates of the expenditure by various committees and departments. See, earlier the role of estimate committee was examining the proposed estimates by the expenditure which was given by the various ministries and the department which comes under the ministries. Since 1993, departmentally related standing committees have taken over this function, leaving the estimate committee to largely examine working of certain government organization. So, from 1993 onwards, departmentally related standing committees have taken for this function. See, leaving the estimate committee, they examine the working of certain government organizations since from 1993. What is the main task of the estimate committee? What is the important role or function of the estimate committee? See, to report the kind of economies, progressive improvements in organization, efficiency and administrative reforms in line with the policy underlying the estimates can be affected. That is the main task of the estimate committee. Suggesting alternative policies to bring efficiency and economy in administration. Having the idea, if they found something which is not up to the mark or which is missing, or if this is implemented, this will spoil the policy, certain policies. So, during that time this committee can recommend, can suggest some alternative policies to bring efficiency and economy in the administration. That is why this 30 members from the House will be nominated to be part of this committee to examine whether the money is well laid out within the limits of the policy implied in the estimates. Also, this committee, they will examine whether the money which is well laid out within the limits, it should not go beyond the limit as per the policy already which is mentioned in the estimates. So, they will very keen to check whether which comes within the limits. If it goes beyond the policy, they will give suggestion. To suggest the form in which the estimate shall be presented to the parliament. So, this committee suggests the form which will estimates shall be presented in the parliament. Okay. The second is the Public Accounts Committee. This Public Accounts Committee, which comprises of 22 members. These 22 members will be elected from both the houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. 15 members from the Lok Sabha and 7 members from the Rajya Sabha. So, combination of both the houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, here Lok Sabha 15, there from Rajya Sabha 7 members, put together in total 22 members will be part of this Public Accounts Committee. This one of the parliamentary committees that examines the annual report of CAG, Comptroller and Auditor General. The main role, the important function of this Public Accounts Committee is to examine the annual report of the Comptroller and Auditor General. Also, they will be focusing on 3 kinds of reports submitted by the CAG, Comptroller and Auditor General. First report is audit on appropriation accounts, then audit report on finance accounts, then audit report on public undertakings. So, these 3 reports will be submitted to the CAG, Comptroller and Auditor General. First is appropriation accounts, which means whenever there are any ministry or department is asking for the money, whether it is appropriate or not will be checked and reviewed. Second is finance accounts, all the financial related transactions, and then report on public undertakings. So, these 3 reports they will be looking into. Also, this committee examines the public expenditure. So, this committee on public undertakings examines the public expenditure as well. See, the purpose of this exercise is to bring out cases of waste, loss, corruption, extravagance, inefficiency and unnecessary expenses. Very important, very important. See, this committee also look into there should not be any waste, which means whatever money which is allocated as per the budget to concerned ministry or concerned departments, no money, not even single penny should be wasted, no resources should be wasted, so that they will check whether this is appropriate or not, the allocation of fund or resources are appropriate or not. Also, they will look into loss. If any occurrences which leads towards loss, they will give their suggestion. Then corruption, very important. There should not be corruption anywhere in the system. They will be very keenly looking into corruption. Then extravagance, inefficiency and unnecessary expenses, which means simply whatever aspects which leads towards loss to the government, they will look into all those things, they will try to eradicate in order to provide efficiency and effectiveness while implementation of the budget. Next is the responsibility of the finance ministry. What is the responsibility of the finance ministry? See, preparation of appropriation and finance bills in consonance with the constitutional provisions. The role of finance ministry is, while preparing of appropriation and finance bills, it should under the purview of the constitutional provisions. Then review of standing charges, outgoing schemes, new projects. They have a review mechanism on standing charges, the outgoing schemes and any new projects coming in, they will review all those things. Preparation of economic classification of budget. They prepare budget with economic classifications. So, this budget will have a clear idea about why this much of money is allocated to so and so ministry or so and so department in order to perform so and so task. Scrutinizing all proposals of spending departments. They scrutinize, they check thoroughly, they classify it, they will scrutinize and all the proposal which will be for the spending departments. The third committee is Committee on Public Undertakings. It is one of the parliamentary committee, which means it is a standing committee, Committee on Public Undertakings, which introduced to expand parliamentary control over public sector undertakings, PSUs, public sector undertakings. So, this committee introduced parliamentary control over on all the public sector undertakings, whatever organization which is considered as a public undertaking which comes under here. This committee has also has 22 members like the other committee, 15 from Lok Sabha and 7 from Rajya Sabha. This committee examined the public sector undertaking accounts, credibility, efficiency and autonomy of their business. The role of public undertaking committee is which will examine public sector undertakings accounts, because all the accounts later on will be sent to the audit purpose. In order to avoid errors or any kind of unnecessary expenditure, this committee will clearly look into credibility, efficiency and autonomy of their business. Also, this Committee on Public Undertakings, which examines the reports of CAG and public sector undertakings and performs any other task assigned by the Lok Sabha with regard to the PSUs. If Parliament tries to implement some policy or new programs, this committee will look into all those things. This committee look into reports of the Comptroller and Auditor General and public sector undertakings, also any new assignment which is given by the Lok Sabha which is related to the public sector undertakings. Budget, accounting and audit. See, the Comptroller and Auditor General of India is a constitutional authority. Accordingly, he shall perform such duties and exercise such powers in relation to the accounts of the Union and of state may be prescribed by the Parliament. He has all the powers to audit all the accounts of Union government as well as state government, because this CAG is a constitutional authority. CAG is the custodian of the accounting and auditing system in India. He is the custodian for auditing and accounting of our nation, our country India. The auditing part of the budget cycle is designed to make sure public money will be spent properly. Yes, why do we need to have an audit? Why do we need to have CAG in place? Why Constitution gives such a provision for the CAG? The reason is, it is public's money. Whatever money collected through various sources as a revenue for the government, it is from the public. So, while spending those monies back to the people in order to provide various measures, welfare schemes to the people, that money should not be spent unnecessarily. There should be an account for each and every penny which is going to be spent. That is why the role of CAG is very important. Here he audits all the expenditure, whether this expenditure is appropriate or not. Audit as an independent review authority with the objective that public organizations or programs spend money in accordance with the law and efficiency. CAG, according to the constitution, it is an independent body. So, here they keenly check all the government organizations and the government programs, they spend money in accordance with law, in accordance with the budget. Also, they check about the efficiency, whether the money which is spent, it is fruitful or not, it is useful or not, whether they spent money as per the guidelines which is mentioned in the budget or not. The office of the CAG is responsible for budget audits. They are the responsible for to perform the audit, whatever that in the budget, and audit is a primarily seen as an extensive of legislative control and accountability over the financial administration of the country. It is very clearly mentioned, audit, it is considered as the financial administration of the country. The audit in our country is more focused on expenditure. See, basically audit will be done post expenditure. As per the budget, budget allocated certain money to the concerned ministries or departments or any programs which supposed to be taken place, they have to maintain records for all the expenditure. Apart from that, whether this expenditure is made as per the budget or not. Each and every ministries, every departments, while raising a request before formulation of budget, whatever amount they asked in the budget in order to perform the desirable task, they will check whether it is accomplished or not. They will check the budget, whether what is the exact amount fund which is been allocated for the concerned ministries or departments. While performing the audit, they will check whether it is done or not. Now, we will move on to the role of finance ministry. What is the role of finance ministry in the execution of budgets? See, the role of finance ministry, it is not only in the execution part, it starts from formulation of the budget, presentation of the budget, as well as the execution of the budget. See, the whole process of budgeting, finance ministry plays a key role, very important role. Okay, just I would like to tell you some important activities of the finance ministry. First one is about preparation of budget estimates, consolidation of estimates of revenue and expenditure, presenting in the form of an annual financial statement, that is called budget. In our constitution, it is not mentioned, nowhere it is mentioned budget, it is mentioned annual financial statement, AFS only. So, the role of finance ministry, it is not only with the execution of budget, first it starts with preparation of budget estimation. They collect the revenue and expenditure from the various ministries and departments, then they will consolidate of estimates on revenue and expenditure, finally they prepare the budget. What are the responsibilities of the finance ministry? Advising on fiscal and monetary policies, raising the financial resources to meet the expenditure targets, examining the disability of the demands of various ministries and departments, consolidation and scrutiny of budget estimates, advising on fiscal and monetary policies, government policies and the policy from the Reserve Bank of India, monetary policy, banking policy. Then raising the financial resources to meet expenditure targets. See, without revenue, how expenditure can be met? So that they will try to raise the financial resources. How it is possible? They will try to collect taxes, excise, custom tax, income tax. Also, they will strengthen the public undertakings, through which they will try to earn money. This money will be utilized for the budget. Next is examining the desirability of the demands of various ministries and departments. While formulating the budget, they will collect the estimation from the ministries and departments, revenue as well as expenditure. Here the Ministry of Finance will clearly examine whether it is in accordance with the objective or not, whether it is feasible or not. So that accordingly, based on that, they will examine and they will give this recommendation to the preparation of the budget, then consolidation and scrutiny of the budget estimate. They will consolidate and scrutinize the estimates in the budget. Then scrutinizing all proposals of spending departments, maintaining financial discipline, ensuring compliance with budgetary laws, enforcing effective control of budgetary expenditure. They will scrutinize all the proposal of spending departments, whatever proposal they have received from the various ministries and departments, especially on the expenditure part, they will scrutinize all those things based on the priority. Then maintaining financial discipline, ensuring compliance with the budgetary laws. For role of finance ministry, especially in the execution part, they will cross check whether they are following all the rules and regulations as per the budget. Then enforcing effective control of budgetary expenditure. They will have finance ministry as a effective control on the budgetary expenditure. Now we will discuss about what is Consolidated Fund of India. See, the Constitution of India brought into existence that CFI, Consolidated Fund of India, for the central government and a separate one for each state. All revenue receipts, all loans raised and all money received in repayment of loans raised and all money received in repayment of loans made by the government are credited to the Consolidated Fund. This Consolidated Fund, it is very important fund. If budget says 1 lakh crore rupee should be given to the Ministry of Human Resource. How this Ministry of Human Resource will claim this money from the Finance Ministry? So, what they will do is, see, this bill will be passed in the Parliament, appropriation of bill. Then only they can take from the Consolidated Fund of India. They are planning to take 1 rupee from the Consolidated Fund of India. It is not possible without the approval from the Parliament. They cannot even take 1 single rupee. The approval has to be done by the Parliament, then assents to the President. Then only it is possible. No withdrawals from the Consolidated Fund are permissible except on the basis of appropriate act passed by the legislature. The appropriate act has to be passed first at the legislature. Second, appropriation bill consolidating all the demands voted already as well as those which are non-votable are adopted by the House. First it has to be accepted, it has to be voted, majority should be there, then only it is possible. When the appropriation bill becomes an act, the government gets the final authority to withdraw sums from the Consolidated Fund. If it is not becomes an act, not even single penny, not even 1 rupee can be withdrawn from the Consolidated Fund of India. So, it has to have a proper appropriation, then this appropriation bill becomes an act, assents to the President. Once he approves, then the concerned ministry can withdraw money from the Consolidated Fund. Here, the expenditure upon the Consolidated Funds of India is divided into 2 parts. First is votable, second is non-votable. Here, the items which are non-votable include the salary and allowances of the President and other expenditure relating to his office, salary and allowances of the Chairman and Deputy Chairman of the Rajya Sabha and Speaker of the Lok Sabha, the salaries and the pension of the judges of the Supreme Court of India, salary, allowances and pension of the Comptroller and Auditor General of India and the debt charges of the Government of India. See, there are 2 parts, votable and non-votable. Votable, already we had a discussion. For any expenditure has to be met by the ministries or departments, if at all even single rupee without the approval from the Parliament, they cannot take it. This is votable. What is non-votable? See, for certain expenditures, this cannot come under votable because these are all mandate. For an example, salary of the President of India, judges, CAG, because each and every month government has to give salary to these authorities, officers. So, for these amounts, votes are not required in the parliament. Without even going for the consideration in the parliament, they can withdraw money from the consolidated fund. This is called non-votable expenditure, so that they can withdraw money from the consolidated fund. Now, we will move on to the public account of India. The public account of India was originally set under the provisions of the Government of India Act of 1935, but was surprisingly retained under the Constitution of India. Initially, it was implemented in the year of 1935. While the proceeds of revenue and loans are credited to the consolidated fund, all other public monies received by or on behalf of Government of India are credited to the public account of India. While the process of revenue, the loans and credited to the consolidated fund of India. Now, you understood about what is consolidated fund of India. Why it is so important? Because the budget, all revenues which will be kept as a safe custody in the consolidated fund of India. See, all other public money received by or on behalf of government, so this will be credited into the public account of India. The other public monies which consist of such items as deposits such as savings, bank deposits, provident fund deposits, department and judicials deposit, etc. or comes under here, other public monies apart from the revenues. These amount held in the trust by the government and repaid as and when required by the executive without the authorization of the legislature. Whenever they wanted to take back the money without the authorization of the legislature, so that this money can be taken back and can be utilized. Though the consolidated fund and the public accounts are distinct and separate, curiously their balances are not kept distinct separate. The consolidated fund of India, the public account, it is separate, but their balances are not kept distinct separate. It will not be kept separate. In other words, the balances of the consolidated fund are merged with the balances of the public accounts. The balance of the consolidated fund, the public accounts fund, which will be merged under one account. There is an obvious advantage in the system to the government, as it can avail of more financial resources than we provided in the Appropriation Act. There is obvious advantage in the system of the government, so that they can avail financial resources than were provided in the appropriation bill. They can avail easily from the financial resources and in the appropriation of the bill. Now, we will discuss about contingency fund of India. According to Article 267, the Constitution makes provision for a contingency fund for the purpose of meeting unforeseen expenditure, spending subsequent authorization of the expenditure by the Parliament. Yes, sometimes the concerned ministry or department, they can keep certain amount under the contingency fund in order to meet the unforeseen expenditure. It is in the nature of an impress into which are paid from time to time such sum as may be determined by such law. So, sometimes they have to keep some money under the contingency fund in order to meet unforeseen expenditure. For each and every time they cannot go to Parliament to pass the bill, then it ascends to the President, so that it is not possible. So, they keep some money under the contingency fund in order to meet unforeseen expenditure. This fund is put at the disposal of the President of India for meeting unforeseen expenditure, which will be there at the disposal of the President of India for meeting any unforeseen expenditure. On the necessary expenditure as be made by the legislature, the amount withdrawn from the fund should be reimbursed to it. In case of necessary expenditure has to be met by the legislature, the amount can be withdrawn from the fund so that it should be reimbursed to the same fund. The estimates of income as forecast by the government may be falsified because of the failure of rains, and the government may have instead to incur huge expenditure by way of providing relief to the needy people. Probably you would have seen, due to monsoon failure, due to some kind of natural calamities, often you would have seen these kind of news in the television and newspaper, how farmers are suffering. Failure of monsoon, at the same time the expected rainfall, if it not takes place also, which will create a problem in the farmer's life. During that time, how this can be managed? By having the the contingency fund will support in order to provide these kind of remedial measures to the needy people. There may be other emergencies also requiring unforeseen expenditure, so that this contingency fund can be utilized for other unforeseen expenditure, not only for famine, not only for monsoon failure, not only for any other unforeseen expenditure. It can be used for anything. It can be during pandemic also. If government decides to give some relief measures to the people, this contingency fund can be used. The provision of the such contingency fund is therefore a necessity. That's why it is considered as an important one. It is necessity. There should be some provision to have contingency fund. This fund can be used for some during this kind of emergency. Similar contingency fund at the disposal of the governors have been created in state government as well. See, President can keep some amount as the contingency fund in order to meet the unforeseen expenditure. Likewise, for state governments, governor also can keep some amount as contingency fund in order to use during the emergency situation, during the meet the unforeseen expenditure. Now we will discuss about legislative control of finance. In a democratic form of government, the supreme authority with regard to financial policy is invested in the legislature, which determines the raising and spending of money. However, the function of the legislature does not end with the voting of supplies for public expenditure. It has also to see that the money granted by it has been properly spent or not. Obviously, legislature which rested with huge power to control on finance, especially the opposition party. They will keep on asking questions on why this much of money is allocated to the concerned ministries or department. Why this huge money needs to be spent on this particular program or on this particular policy to be implemented. So, legislature will have control on finance, on whatever spending will be done by the concerned ministries or departments which is there in the budget, so that legislature will have a control. During the general discussion, this will be discussed. For this purpose, there is an independent audit of all the departmental accounts by a statutory authority, the Comptroller and Auditor General CAG, and the subsequent examination of his report by a Parliament committee, namely Public Accounts Committee. Public Accounts Committee will take care. CAG will be doing the audit, as well as the subsequent examination of this report by a Parliament committee, namely Public Accounts Committee, will do the examination part. I would like to conclude the session. See, the government budget, which involves lot of accounting and financial planning, not only for administrative needs but for the welfare of the people. Any budget, we should not simply think that this budget allocated this crore rupee just for administration. No, this crore rupee which is allocated for the welfare of the people. Welfare of the people means it should provide the basic needs, even the person who lives in the remote villages. The government budget is not only an estimation of its receipts and expenditure, but it acts as a tool for meeting administrative needs and securing socio-economic goals in the public interest. It should support to reach the socio-economic goals in the public interest. The government budget has changed now with the changing activities. The main objectives of the budget is to bring changes to provide welfare to the people. When financial outlays are presented regarding developmental schemes, physical goals are also presented to accomplish the same within the stipulated time to be cost effective. All should be implemented within the given time frame without even spending one penny extra. It should be within the budget. So far we discussed about the execution of budget. Under execution of budget, we discussed about three important committees: role of finance ministry, what is consolidated fund, what is public accounts, what is contingency fund. Thank you so much.